It's menacing, and it was supposed to be a relic. Yet today, this old warbird is back, scarier, faster, and deadlier than ever. Military analysts once dismissed it as a museum piece, a Cold War artifact destined for static displays and flyovers. Now they're calling it a nightmare that refuses to die. Because the B-1B Lancer, a bomber that rolled out during the Reagan years, has been reborn into something no one saw coming. Something that has Pentagon officials smiling while America's adversaries are scrambling to adjust. And what can it carry now? That's the part that stuns even the experts. This isn't just an upgrade. It's the Cold War's bone, reborn as a hypersonic missile truck. A complete game changer. That question led straight into the program that would change everything. The Beast Awakens. They called the program BEAST. Not a nickname, not a Hollywood exaggeration, but an acronym. B1 Embracing Agile Scheduling Team. Doesn't sound sexy, right? But the results? Terrifying. Here's why. Normally, military upgrades take years, sometimes a decade, just to bring one jet into modern standards. The Beast program can overhaul an entire B-1B in just 22 days. That's less time than it takes some airlines to refurbish a passenger jet's cabin. In September 2023, at Dyess Air Force Base in Texas, the first Beast-modified B-1B took to the skies. Crews knew they weren't just flying an upgrade. They were flying a declaration. This bomber isn't retiring, it's getting rearmed for the future. The new identification friend or foe system allows it to instantly distinguish allies from threats in a chaotic modern battlefield. Link 16 tactical data links turn it into a node in America's vast network, feeding real-time intelligence across every ship, plane, and satellite in the theater. And here's the jaw-dropper: modern data storage systems. Back in 1985, the Bone could barely dream of managing digital warfare. Now, it processes the torrents of information that modern wars generate, adapting on the fly like something out of science fiction. That's when people started to whisper, if the upgrades are this good, what else could this bomber do? And soon, those whispers turned into a revelation that would leave the world stunned. The hypersonic leap. The whispers became headlines in 2024. Because that's when the Air Force strapped something to the B-1B that no one expected. Hypersonic weapons. Enter the LAM pylons, Load Adaptable Modular Pylons. Designed by Boeing, funded with their own money, these beasts can carry either two massive 2,000-pound weapons or one weapon tipping over 5,000 pounds. But here's where jaws hit the floor. They were built specifically for hypersonic missiles. At Edwards Air Force Base, engineers watched in awe as a B-1B carried a 5,000-pound test store on one of these pylons, and then released it. Clean separation. Perfect. A 40-year-old bomber carrying weapons meant for the next generation. Think about this. One single B-1B could haul up to 36 hypersonic missiles. 24 inside, 12 outside. That's more hypersonic firepower than many entire countries have in conventional bombs. Suddenly, this retired bomber wasn't just relevant, it was the tip of the spear. But unlocking this new firepower meant digging up something long buried in the bomber's past. Ghosts of the Cold War. Here's the crazy twist. The B-1B wasn't supposed to do this. Back in the Cold War, its external hardpoints were sealed shut, literally welded over, as part of nuclear arms treaties meant to limit America's strike potential. These attachment points were originally designed to carry nuclear-tipped cruise missiles, making the B-1B a central piece of the nuclear triad. But when the Soviet Union collapsed, the US agreed to disable them permanently. For decades, they sat dormant, reminders of a past era. So how did Boeing pull this off without violating those same treaties? They got clever. The new LAM pylons use the old structural mounts, but bypass the nuclear-specific wiring that was stripped out long ago. The result is elegant, full capability without breaking international agreements. Each pylon can carry up to 7,500 pounds. Hypersonic giants, anti-ship slayers, or precision-guided bombs, configured however commanders need. It's like taking a classic muscle car, bolting on a Tesla battery pack and nitrous system. The same frame, but futuristic power. Uncovering those buried capabilities didn't stay quiet for long. China and Russia take notice. The timing wasn't random. Look at the global chessboard. China has poured billions into anti-access systems, layered defenses, long-range missiles, and radar networks designed to keep US forces pushed far from the Pacific. Russia, on the other hand, has spent years bragging about its hypersonic arsenal, calling it unstoppable, and flaunting test footage as proof of superiority. Both nations believed they had created buffers strong enough to hold American power at bay. And then the B-1B stepped back onto the stage, shrugging off its age like it was nothing. Suddenly, this bomber wasn't just surviving. It was carrying enough hypersonic firepower to flatten an enemy's strategy in a single night. In the Pacific, where naval dominance is everything, the B-1B plugged America's biggest gap: long-range anti-ship firepower. Outfitted with LAM pylons, it can haul 36 JASSM or LRASM missiles, each one designed to cripple a warship with pinpoint precision. A handful of bones could unleash a storm more devastating than whole fighter wings. And the hypersonics? That's the nightmare scenario. Mach 5 slayers that can't be intercepted. And just when rivals thought hypersonics were the end of the story, the B-1B proved it had even more tricks waiting. Beyond hypersonics. But don't think it stops there. This isn't a one-trick pony. The B-1B isn't just about hypersonics. It's the only aircraft certified to carry the AGM-158C long-range anti-ship missile. And soon, it will handle the even more lethal C-3 variant with extended range. For any Navy facing down a B-1B, that's a nightmare scenario. Entire carrier groups could be targeted from well beyond the range of their defenses. And it doesn't stop with missiles. Inside, the bomber's payload capacity has grown dramatically. Once limited to 24 bombs, the B-1B can now carry up to 40 precision-guided 500-pounders, a 60% leap in conventional firepower. For the crew, modern battle station upgrades transform the way missions unfold. Digital displays, live intelligence feeds, and integrated targeting pods give them real-time adaptability, turning mid-flight course changes into standard practice. Imagine flying into contested skies, receiving live updates, and retasking a payload instantly. That's the reality now. Pulling all of this off, though, took some serious behind-the-scenes wizardry, and that's where the engineering feats come in. Of course, none of this came easily. The B-1B's wings sweep dramatically, from a wide 15 degrees at takeoff to nearly 70 degrees when it pushes into supersonic flight. Hanging massive new weapons under those wings was like trying to strap rockets to a folding lawn chair. Risky, unstable, and potentially disastrous unless the solution was perfect. Boeing's engineers had to turn to advanced computational fluid dynamics, months of wind tunnel testing, and brand new thermal management systems just to make the concept possible. These new pylons aren't simple chunks of steel. They're carefully shaped, heat-resistant, and smart enough to keep hypersonic payloads balanced and stable at speeds the bomber's original designers couldn't have imagined. The software side was just as intense. Systems built in the 1970s had to be completely rewritten to recognize and manage weapons designed nearly half a century later. It's like teaching a rotary phone to run TikTok. Absurd, yet somehow it works. But engineering marvels only matter if they change the fight. And that's where the operational impact becomes clear. What does this mean in the real world? Speed, range, payload, the trifecta. On paper, these words look impressive, but in practice, they redefine how the US projects power. Stationed at Guam, a B-1B can cover nearly the entire Western Pacific within hours, reaching hotspots before rival forces can reposition or respond. Add hypersonic weapons to that equation, and you have a strike platform that can hit with devastating speed, leaving enemies with no time to react. Unlike some bombers that need highly prepared bases, the B-1B can operate from dispersed or even austere airfields, making its movements unpredictable and its presence harder to counter. That flexibility forces adversaries to plan for multiple threats at once, stretching their defenses thin. Training transitions are also smoother. crews don't have to learn a new jet, just master its new strengths. This ensures combat readiness faster than starting from scratch. And beyond the raw firepower, the upgrades gave the B-1B something just as dangerous: deterrence on a whole new level. There's another layer here that's easy to miss: psychological warfare. Modern conflict isn't just about missiles and bombs. It's also about perception, uncertainty, and fear. When adversaries detect a B-1B on radar, they can't know what's inside its bays or hanging beneath its wings. Is it loaded with conventional bombs for surgical strikes? Is it carrying long-range anti-ship missiles that could wipe out a naval task force? Or is it armed with hypersonics, the kind of weapons no defense system on Earth can intercept? That uncertainty is crippling. It forces enemy commanders into a constant guessing game where every decision risks being the wrong one. In combat, hesitation can be fatal, stalling an attack, weakening defenses, or even deterring action altogether. That's the hidden brilliance of the B-1B's transformation. The bone doesn't just unleash firepower, it unleashes doubt, and doubt spreads faster than missiles. Sometimes, that invisible payload, fear itself, is more powerful than the weapons on board. If doubt is its deadliest weapon today, the future promises even more. Which brings us to the future horizons. And believe it or not, this is just the beginning. The Air Force is already eyeing the hypersonic attack cruise missile, smaller, air-breathing, and far more flexible than today's systems. With weapons like this, a single B-1B could carry dozens at once, transforming into something close to a swarm launcher in the sky. That level of saturation firepower would overwhelm even the most advanced defenses. At the same time, next-gen defensive upgrades are on the way: smarter electronic warfare suites, AI-assisted targeting, and autonomous threat detection. Picture a bomber that doesn't just unleash the future's weapons, but shields itself like a flying fortress of sensors, code, and countermeasures. The B-1B's sheer size and immense electrical capacity make it the perfect testbed for these technologies. Once built for speed, this Cold War sprinter is steadily evolving into a true 21st century juggernaut. All of these future upgrades point to one larger truth: a testament to ingenuity. Let's take a step back and really appreciate what's happening here. The B-1B Lancer first took to the skies in 1974, almost half a century ago, when rotary phones, cassette tapes, and muscle cars defined the era. By every measure, this aircraft should have been retired long ago, a polished museum piece rolled out for air shows and nostalgia. Instead, it's still flying, not as a relic, but as one of the most advanced strike platforms in the world. The bone has been re-engineered, reimagined, and transformed into something even its original designers could never have pictured. What was once a Cold War sprint bomber has become a 21st century missile truck, carrying weapons that didn't even exist when it was born. The lesson is clear: military power isn't always about shiny new toys. Sometimes the smartest move is pushing what you already have to new limits. The B-1B was supposed to fade quietly. Instead, it's rewriting history. So the next time you catch the silhouette of a B-1B Lancer slicing through the sky, don't mistake it for a museum piece lumbering toward retirement. What you're really looking at is a predator reborn, a wolf in wolf's clothing, carrying new fangs sharper and deadlier than anything it's ever had before. Once dismissed as a relic of the Cold War, the bone has refused to fade into history. Instead, it's storming into the future, bristling with hypersonic missiles, advanced electronics, and the kind of versatility that keeps even the boldest adversaries awake at night. It isn't going quietly. It's flying with purpose, loaded with weapons no one can stop and strategies no one can predict. And that's the real game changer. If you love deep dives into the jets, bombers, and fighters that shape the future of combat, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Around here, we bring you the stories that keep engines roaring and afterburners lit. Stay locked in. The skies are only getting hotter.